Choosing Family by ginnyrules27, Chapter 9. The next time Hades was able to have a one-to-one conversation with his daughter wasn't until a month after the first one. Yes, he still saw her about once a week whenever she came into the restaurant, but it was never longer than 10 minutes or so. She came in, placed her order, which 9 times out of 10 was a fish dish of some kind, and leave. Hades had been trying to come up with a fish dish that took longer to make, but with no luck. A 10-minute prep and cook time seemed to be the perfect amount. The fish either became too dry or too oily otherwise. Persephone, though, had promised to get a cookbook the next time she was off the isle, or at the very least print out some recipes. Never before had Hades longed for something as simple as an internet connection, but now he did. It was bad enough Beast had to put a magical barrier around the isle, but he could have at least given them a dial-up of the very least. It's not like they could use the internet to escape. Plus, the image of Maleficent trying to use a computer was one Hades would pay to make real, instead of living solely in his head. Hades had been closing up the restaurant when he saw Mal running past him out of the corner of his eye. Now, a child of the Isle running someplace normally wouldn't garner any attention. 9 times out of 10 the kid was running from whatever shopkeep they stole from, and normally was able to get out of the way in a matter of minutes. The wonders of youth. However, this was Mal. There would have been no reason for her to steal from or run from any of the shopkeepers in the area. Being the daughter of Maleficent gave her leeway in that regard. Most shopkeepers would have just given her the item she asked for as a tribute just to keep Maleficent happy. It does help to have the ability to turn into a dragon, even if the magical barrier prevents Maleficent from actually doing it, Hades thought as he saw Fred Frollo chase after his daughter. Guess Mal didn't steal from a shopkeeper after all. Time to see what the little French fanatic wants with my daughter. Following at a distance, Hades watched as Frollo's son chased Mal into a nearby alley. Mal looked around, seeming frantic, as she reached a dead end and whirled around to face the other boy. Hades longed to step in, to protect his daughter from whatever was about to happen. But he knew that on the Isle, an adult stepping in was the ultimate sign of weakness. The only acceptable time was when there was a known alliance or the odds were stacked horribly against the kid the adult was coming to the rescue for. At this point, with a 1-up-1 match, there was no way Mal would forgive him if Hades stepped in now. After all, reputation was everything on the Isle. Caught you now, you little witch! Fred growled, and Hades saw the bright purple paint splattered all over the boy's clothing. Hades could only imagine which Isle resident was responsible for that. Why is she alone? Hades thought. From what I've seen, Uma and Hook's kids have been at her side like glue. Hades could only hope Mal had acted alone, and that she didn't have a falling out with one of her minions. The Isle was dangerous enough with help. Trying to navigate it alone was near suicide. Even Maleficent had her minions, and was even trying to recruit some non-goblin ones if the rumour mill was to be believed. She had already snatched up Cruella, though honestly Hades thought the two of them were made for each other. Both of them were completely insane, and cared only for themselves. That, in addition to Jafar, brought Maleficent's non-goblin minions to a grand total of 2. While there was safety in numbers, it didn't matter when the one terrified and the rest of the Isle based their reputation alone. You are in our territory, Frollo, Mal said, bringing Hades' attention back to the matter at hand and standing as tall as she could, which wasn't that tall. Despite Frollo's son being just 3 years older than Mal, the boy still towered over her due to his lean build. You honestly thought you could go after Harry's sister and get away with it? You got off lucky that Harry only splashed you in the face with seawater. You should have left her alone when she told you the first time. A wonderful story. I don't suppose you have any proof to back it up, Frollo sneered. You think just because Maleficent is your mother you can just walk around the Isle and do what you please? The wicked shall have their just reward. Mal rolled her eyes, the frantic look having faded away to be replaced with bored indifference. Newsflash, weirdo. We're all wicked here. Why else would we be in a place called the Isle of the Lost? My father was unjustly persecuted. Yeah, tell that to someone who cares. Mal said, and Hades could tell that she was reaching behind her for something. She was leaning up against a barrel, so Hades could only see if she was reaching for something to fight back with, so he was a little surprised to see Mal was holding what looked like a water balloon. Frollo opened his mouth to respond, but Mal let the balloon go, and a cloud of dark red smoke filled the alley. Quickly making his way down the street a bit, Hades ducked into another alleyway and pulled Mal into it as she ran past. "What are you?" Hades shushed her just as Frollo ran past. His clothes now stained with the dark red smoke that had clashed with the purple paint already on it. Looking around, he snarled as he couldn't find Mal and ran off. "I had him where I wanted him," Mal exclaimed as soon as the coast was clear. "You didn't need to butt in."
"Oh, I'm sorry that I thought it might be a good idea to see what's going on when you ran past me. Frollo hot on your heels,"
Hades said, scoffing a bit. "Why do you even care?" Mal shot back. Hades had to school his features to make sure Mal couldn't see the hurt in his face. She didn't know. She still didn't know. He honestly hadn't expected Maleficent would have told Mal straight away, but even she couldn't be that cruel to keep her identity from Mal. Oh, who was he kidding? Of course Maleficent was that cruel. And, of course, there was never a right moment for Hades to tell Mal herself. What was he supposed to say? "Oh, by the way, I'm your dad," when he handed her her meal? She'd probably think he was insane and never stop by the restaurant again.
"I care because you have certain skills I need," Hades said carefully, thinking on his feet. "How would you like to earn all the free food you can eat?"
Mal stared at him for a second before her eyes narrowed a little in suspicion. "What's the catch?"
"Once a week, you need to run down to Hook's fish shop and pick up the order,"
Hades told her. He'd had more responsibilities once their relationship developed, but for right now, he knew that she trusted Hook's son, and Hook's son presumably trusted her. Therefore, Hook should hopefully do the same. It was a good place to start. "That's it?" Mal asked, crossing her arms over her chest and raising an eyebrow. "I stop by Hook's shop once a week, and I get free food from your place whenever I want?" Hades nodded, while mentally adding that he'd be keeping an eye on her in case Frollo or his gang tried anything. Though he already did that anyway. He trusted Maleficent about as far as he could throw her.
"You got it."
"And the gang," Mal said quickly.
"I'm sorry?"
"My gang gets the same thing," Mal elaborated, and Hades couldn't help but feel of relief that washed over him upon seeing that. So Mal had been acting alone when she went up against Frollo. Hook Jr. was probably at his father's shop, and Uma was more likely working with Ursula. "They get free food too, or the deal's off." Hades glowered slightly, but couldn't say no. As much as he distrusted Hook and had no relationship with his niece, he couldn't refuse Mal.
"Fine," he said, trying to keep his tone neutral. "As long as they say they're with you when they come to get their food. I'm not into the charity business."
Mal paused and looked over at him in suspicion. "I thought it was restaurant policy that the kids of the Isle eat for free."
"Policies change,"
Hades said simply. He wouldn't actually charge any of the kids on the Isle. Well, maybe with the exception of Frollo's brat, but Mal didn't need to know that.
"Do we have a deal?"
Mal nodded and held out her hand to shake. Hades took it and couldn't help but give a small smile at how small her hand was compared to his as they shook it. It was a weird thing to notice, but he did.
"Okay, go and run off now," Hades told her. "First order pickup is Tuesday by 11. Don't be late."
Mal nodded and ran off, presumably to let Uma and Harry know about her alliance with Hades. Hades chuckled and made his way back to the underworld. He'd have to talk to Virgil and let him know Mal would be taking over his duties from Hook's. Hopefully the little jar of sunshine wouldn't take it the wrong way, and think Hades was replacing him entirely. The kid was a bundle of nerves, but he was quick and a hard learner, more nervous about making a mistake than anything else. Rare qualities for the Isle.
"Panic!"
Hades shouted as he walked into the underworld. "Yes, Hades?" Panic said as he came running towards the god.
"Is your son here? I need to speak to him,"
Hades said, and Panic's eyes grew wide. "Oh, whatever's he done? I'm sorry, Hades. He'll do better. I promise." Hades rolled his eyes. Panic always seemed to go for the worst case scenario, possibly due to it being his name.
"He hasn't done anything, Panic. I just need to speak with him about his duties as my errand rat."
"Oh!" Panic seemed to deflate in relief. I'll go get him." Hades nodded as the little imp scurried out of the room. Hades plopped onto the sofa, thinking it wouldn't be a good idea to totally intimidate the kid. If he was anything like his father, Hades was in for at least a good 5 minutes ramble about how he'd see improvement. "Hades?" Panic's voice called out no more than 5 minutes later. That was a good thing about Panic. He never left you waiting longer than you had to. Virgil's here.
Send him over,
Haley said, looking over his shoulder. The kid was thin, with dark brown hair with bangs that almost seemed to cover his eyes at times. He favoured his mother clearly, with mainly human features with the exception of slightly pointed ears and a slight yellow tint to his eyes. Oddly enough, he seemed to have a purple sweatshirt on, which only served to make him look thinner than he already was. One would think that as Panic's son, Virgil would have a green sweatshirt, but maybe it was left over from when Vanessa and Ursula split. After all, his niece did favour purple, which made Uma's preference of blue all the more amusing.
Wait, did that make Vanessa his niece as well? Since that was the human form Ursula shifted into when she went after Eric?
Hades thought as Virgil walked over to him. Shaking his head slightly, Hades decided it wasn't the right time to dive into those thoughts. Besides, if Vanessa was his niece, that would make Panic related to him in a way, as he was her husband. Hades liked the moron, but not enough to call him family. You asked to see me, Lord Hades? Virgil asked, and Hades had to remind himself that the kid was 8. He was only 3 years older than Mal, though with the stuttering it was hard to see it.
I wanted to talk to you about your duties as my errand rat,
Hades said, and Virgil's eyes grew wide. It was as if he was imagining every worst-case scenario he could. I am sorry. I'll do better. Am I not fast enough?
Virgil!
Hades cut the boy off before he had the chance to build up steam. If the boy was anything like his father, Hades would be sitting there for a week before he could have gotten a word in otherwise.
You're not in trouble. I just picked up another errand rat, so I would let you know that you don't need to go to Hooks anymore.
Oh. Virgil flushed a little, but calming down. But what would I do as your errand rat if I'm not going to Hooks? That's pretty much the only place I go to for orders for you, Lord Hades.
That was the good thing about Virgil, Hades thought. When he wasn't panicking, he was clear and concise, almost logical in how he thought things through. If he didn't have his father's gift for thinking things of the worst possible outcome, the kid would go far. I'm thinking of adding a delivery aspect to the restaurant,
Hades thought, the idea coming to him out of the blue. It would work as a reason to keep Virgil on as an errand rat. Plus, there were some villains who didn't like to venture out of their homes. If they had kids, those kids would still need food. You want me to be a delivery boy? Virgil asked, more than a little apprehensive about the idea, but Hades was happy to see the stammer hadn't returned.
Good. The boy would need to grow a backbone if he was going to make it on the Isle. You've proven yourself reliable enough in picking up packages from Hook, Hades said. I see no reason why you couldn't be the same with customers' money.
That's assuming they'll pay, Virgil muttered, and Hades had to hold off the snort of amusement.
The kid had a point. If you get anyone who refuses to pay, let me know, Hades told him. Anyone with a pre-existing deal with me should let you know at the start. If not, I'll make a list.
Virgil nodded, and Hades couldn't help but be impressed. Any other kid would complain about the work that it would take, schlepping deliveries around the Isle. Though Virgil was the son of one of his minions, it was logical to assume the kid just didn't want to make life harder for his dad.
Any questions?
Hades asked. What do I do if a customer starts causing trouble? Virgil asked, immediately looked down. Sorry, I guess that's a stupid question.
No such thing, Hades told him.
It was actually a fair question, considering the type of villains that lived on the Isle. Most, if not all of them, had reputations of not treating their minions with respect, and Hades was no exception. But Virgil was a kid. He didn't ask for this life.
Any customer that's abusive, I want you to leave their house and come to me. I'll deal with it.
Hades normally didn't care what the other villains got up to, but Virgil was Panic's son, and therefore an extension of Hades' minion. His minion, his rules. No one else got to abuse them.
Besides, there's a strong possibility that this little twerp is my nephew if Vanessa actually is my niece, considering the fact that Vanessa was just the form Ursula used to trap Eric.
Hades thought, unlike Ursula and Uma, he had actually been around Virgil since the little sunspot was born, or had at least heard about him from Panic. Mal's old nursery furniture had been Virgil's, and there was still the possibility of Virgil being one of Mal's minions once Hades got her back. His fight or flight reflex would be a good thing for her to have at her disposal. Plus, his constant overthinking would mean he'd be the rare exception to the idea that an older kid would have issues taking orders from someone younger. Lord Hades, Virgil spoke up in a soft voice, and Hades blinked at slight surprise to see the kid standing in front of him.
You're dismissed. Report to the restaurant on Tuesday for your first round of deliveries.
Hades said, and Virgil nodded before racing out of the room as if there was a Cerberus on his tail. Hades, don't torture the poor boy, Persephone told him as she walked into the room.
I didn't,
he told her, and Persephone raised an eyebrow.
Honest stuff. This time I was on my best behaviour with the boy.
Persephone nodded and leaned on the sofa so that she was looking over his shoulder. So, what did you need to talk to him about?
I'm changing up his responsibilities as errand rat,
Hades told her. Oh, Hades, you just said you didn't torture the poor boy, Persephone sighed. You know how well Virgil responds to change. Hades shook his head.
Life on the Isle is all about change. If he's going to make it here, he's going to have to get used to that idea.
Well, at least it's a good change, Persephone said as she sat down next to Hades. But why change up his responsibilities?
I acquired a new errand rat and decided it was time for the boy to take on new responsibilities, Hades told her. After all, he'd be the more experienced one.
I think you might have made Virgil's day and caused his nightmare to come to life at the same time, Persephone said, running a hand through Hades' hair. She loved how, despite his denials, Hades truly cared for the kids of the Isle. Or at least the ones connected to him. Who's your new errand rat? Hades took a deep breath and couldn't help the smile that graced his lips.
Mal.
End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that. Oh, I love that chapter. Little Virgil's so sweet, but he's also really smart for an 8-year-old. Oh boy. And Freddie Frollo. First sight of him. Keep an eye on that one, people. He's trouble. And Mal, like, that cute little bit where they're shaking hands and he notices how tiny her hand is. That's just cute. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Bye!